Have any of you ever watched the movie Food Inc? Well, I've had to many times throughout my high school and college career, and let me tell you, if you have a weak stomach, I would not recommend this movie. It goes behind the scenes of the horrifying and graphic detail of where your meat comes from if it is not organic or farm raised, and it just seems like not the way to go. I have known many people that after watching this specific movie that have gone vegetarian or even vegan just because of the sights that they've seen in this. While going vegetarian may have its pros, not many people think about the cons that may come with that as well. And that's what we'll be talking about today. I have poured through many different books covering both vegetarianism and veganism and covering the pros and cons of both, and I've came to the conclusion of many crucial facts in both the pluses and negatives of this topic. It is known that every single human being on the earth eats, and even if the diets may vary based on where you live or just how you choose to eat, meat tends to be a common factor, obviously, unless you've already chosen to go vegan or vegetarian. It may be obvious now that I will obviously be discussing the pros and cons of becoming a vegetarian in this current day and age, and whether your decision on this be due to the ethics or health issues or benefits that you may see with going vegetarianism, choosing a meat-free lifestyle may work for you or it may not. The first topic that I'm going to discuss today is the meat industry ethical in the treatment of animals or not, or does it just not matter? What some people may consider to be unethical in the cruel treatment of animals might just be a circle of life to other people and how they think about meat. It's a well-known fact that meat in the United States is not always coming from those happy farms that we would like to think that it all is coming from. These farms are actually more or less factories in which animals are cramped in very dirty, unclean environments until they sit there and are eventually slaughtered in a way that's not always very kind or painless. And this comes from one of the books that I researched, and the author is Mr. Rice, and it is 101 Reasons Why I Am a Vegetarian. So the next thing you have to think about is, if I want to eat meat, where would I be able to get meat that isn't so cruel? And they actually have options now in almost every grocery store where you can purchase naturally raised or farm raised or also cage-free meat or eggs as well. That generally tends to mean that the animals lived in a much more suitable environment where they were a lot more able to roam freely, and chances are they were kind of just, killed off, unfortunately, but it's that they were able to live a happier life up until that point. Now, going to the other side of this, a lot of people that are against vegetarianism or just don't think it's for them generally don't really care where their meat comes from. And I can also agree with that side as well, because it's a part of life, and if you don't think about where it comes from, or if you just know that it's part of the circle of life, it may not affect you. And much of the human population still eats meat because of the belief that humans and animals were put here for the sole purpose that animals would benefit humans in the long run as either meat or their byproduct. And some people think it's just the natural way of life to eat the meat because animals were put here for that purpose. And a lot of people also raise the argument that if they stop eating meat, it's not going to make much of a difference, which also makes sense in the long run. And a lot of people also bring up the fact that these animals, most of the times, are just bred purely to feed others. It's not someone's pet that's going through all this harsh treatment just to get eaten. It's usually animals that were bred for this purpose. And they won't be ending this purpose of being bred to eat, so it's just accustomed to this consumption of that idea. So, does the treatment of animals affect how you see meat enough to make you stop wanting to eat meat altogether? Or would you just choose the vegetarian lifestyle? if that alone doesn't decide the matter for you, maybe knowing the possible health consequences and benefits may help the process along. It is extremely common for vegetarians to take some sort of supplements, which is kind of a con in vegetarianism because you think that it's overall a lot healthier, which it might be, but you generally need to take all these supplements because when you cut meat out, you are losing a lot of different vitamins that you would be getting otherwise. And some of these vitamins that you might be decreasing the value on with cutting meat out would be B12, which is a very extremely common nutrient to lack when you cut meat out, as well as iron. And a lot of vegetarians will combat the deficiency of these supplements just with the idea of supplementing them. And another issue that people face when becoming a vegetarianism is the idea of carbs. Because you're cutting one thing out, you generally overcompensate in another part of the food group, which is carbs. And as most of us know in this day and age, carbs are good for you, but in moderation. So I've known quite a few people who, when they've gone vegetarian, have actually gained more weight than they thought they ever would, just because they were consuming a lot more carbs to make up for the fact that they were not eating meat any longer. And this might be a reason as to why being a vegetarian and choosing that sort of lifestyle could be not so good for your health, because if you think about it, you're trying to be healthier, but you're also kind of negating the fact if you make up for it. So it's all about, what you're consuming and in moderation for the most part. Another topic of the health benefits and consequences for becoming a vegetarian are children. And this may seem a little out there, but there have been many different news reportings and articles that have come out because it's a hot topic about whether or not children under the age of 5 or so can really make the decision themselves to live a plant-based and meat-free lifestyle. And it also comes to the fact that most people understand that the children need enough of the nutrients from meat to grow healthy and like strong bones and different sorts of pros like that, because without those nutrients, obviously they're not going to grow and be, as strong and healthy and whatnot as they could be if they were consuming meats and animal byproducts and whatnot. So it's something to definitely think about, because a lot of vegetarians and vegans that are blog posters and Instagrammers and whatnot have chosen a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle for even their newborns, which a lot of people have an issue with because they're not getting the proper nutrients all the time. And it does make sense because meat is thought of as the cause of many, many health issues such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, and diabetes. But in reality, it's not so much the meat that you need to blame for this and the fat that comes along with it, it's sugar. And obviously, a lot of meat doesn't really have that sugar content that would cause these. So people have a different idea about that. And coming back to children and if going meat-free is healthy for them, and even adults and the elderly, meat is a basis in what helps build muscle. It's a big protein, so if you're not eating meat, you have to figure out other ways such as tofu or soybeans or different kinds of things like that. And so even nuts. A lot of peanut butters and almond butters and all that is really good for that, but you have to think about that and plan ahead before making that decision. And after talking about all these negatives of becoming a vegetarian, I figured that talking about the positives health-wise would be a very good idea as well. And it does definitely have its pros and its cons, but the pros do seem to be just as solid as the cons do, and vegetarians generally intake a lot less saturated fats because they are not worrying about the fat that generally would be found in some meats, and it's easier to avoid that if you just don't eat meat in general. And I've heard personally from many people that I've known that are vegetarian that by not eating meat, they are actually having less skin issues such as acne and different health issues just like that, where it's more skin related and hair related and types of things like that, just because the saturated fats clog up your pores and just make it overall unhealthy. And A lot of meat these days is also pumped with a lot of unnecessary hormones and different sort of fillers like that, which you don't necessarily want to be putting in your body because it's chemicals and hormones that shouldn't be in anyone's body, much less you willingly consuming it. So a lot of people are choosing this meat-free lifestyle just to avoid all those bad chemicals and hormones that the manufacturers may be putting into this meat. So, do you think that the health benefits outweigh the consequences of being a vegetarian, or would you just really not see that as an issue? And we've covered everything from ethics to health benefits and consequences, and I think we're all, for ourselves, able to decide if we want to continue to eat meat or not in this day and age. And a lot of people are really choosing that vegan, vegetarian lifestyle because it's just not as easy, but it is, in the long run, seems to be the way to go, just health-wise and whatnot, although some people just don't seem to mind and think that, an extra run or whatnot from that protein is not going to harm them, so they just do it anyways. And deciding what sort of lifestyle you want to live and what sort of food you want to put in your body is obviously your decision in the end. Being able to weigh the pros and cons of the vegetarian lifestyle is important before deciding to completely cut out something from your life, such as meat, because you need to plan and figure out what meals you will have in replacement of all the meat meals that you had been eating before. But luckily, this isn't a decision that I need to make for you, so I'm not going to worry about it for you, but just know that this is a small portion of the information covering vegetarianism, and there's always more out there. And in this day and age where everyone is extremely health conscious, it won't be hard to find more information. So think about this. The next time you go out to eat with friends, will you think twice about ordering that steak or burger? I don't know. That's up to you.